Very much. Let's bring in the Chief Strategist and Communications Director for the RNC, Sean Spicer. Good to see you.
Good morning, Chris.
All right, so let's keep on your theme of transparency. Do you believe that you will be the press secretary for the administration?
Here's what I believe, that every single decision is made by Donald Trump, and until he makes it and announces it, it's not final. So there's nothing to announce on that front.
Do you have reason to believe that you could be the next press secretary of the administration?
Like I said, I'll refer to my first comment, but thank you.
What's the point? The point is I wish you well, but also that transparency is very subjective, right? And that gets us into the discussion of the conflicts. You had a very interesting interview with Kate Baldwin yesterday. At one moment you said, here's how conflicts of interest arise when you're sneaky, when you're not for it. That's not true. A conflict of interest exists all on its own. Donald Trump has conflicts of interest because he's got business concerns and now public duty. His kids, same analysis. The question is, what will you do about the conflicts of interest? They're not potential, they're real. The answer is in transparency. Do you believe we've had enough transparency?
Thank you. So number one, let's take these in order. Number one, the president can't have a conflict of interest. Number two is that the reason that you know about the children being involved are two things. One, they're on the website and they were publicly named as being a part of the transition. And two, we brought the press in to show who was at the meeting. So it's not like there's anything nefarious going on or sneaky or untransparent. We've been very clear about the role of his family, the importance that they play, and the advice that they give him. So I think that there's a difference if you're being sneaky and not telling people what's going on, but we literally brought the press in, showed everybody who was there. They're close. Their father appreciates their counsel and their advice.
Right.
And as we work through these remaining 36 days to the inauguration, Mr. Trump and his lawyers and accountants will go through a process to make sure that there's a clear delineation between his business and his desire and commitment to serve the American people.
A conflict of interest, as you know, is as much an ethical standard as it is a legal one. The idea that there isn't a specific law governing this behavior does not end the responsibility. This is ethical.
Correct.
And while we know that they're involved, but Sean, here's the question. The kids are going to be running the business. They're also sitting in on government meetings and selection processes. That is a conflict of interest. What would help understand the impact of that conflict is knowing more about the businesses, knowing what's in the tax returns, knowing what is being done here. We don't know any of that. Is that fair?
Well, look, I think Donald Trump filed 170 some odd pages of a financial disclosure form as required by law that lays out all of his holdings, who he owes debts to, what he has in terms of assets. That's what's required by law. He's gone above and beyond that. I get what the press wants, but the American people have understood exactly what they're getting, and they voted overwhelmingly for him. He has been very clear about what he owns, the role of his family, and everything else since he announced that he was running for president, and they overwhelmingly elected him with all of that on the table. So I understand by some on the left and frankly some in the media to want to comb through certain documents that he has. But the American people are clearly satisfied with what they got, and not only on Election Day, but since he's been elected, his approval rating's gone up like 20 some odd points. So not only have they elected him, they've become more and more pleased with the job that he's done, and he hasn't even assumed the office yet.
I thought you guys didn't like polls, but if we want to play with them, we know that more people are concerned about his business dealings than those who are not. We know that his approval rating is low compared to where other president-elects have been at this point. But let's dismiss the polls. You said they overwhelmingly voted for him. There is no definition of overwhelming that would meet the statistical criteria.
306 electoral votes?
It's one of the lowest.
Sure there is.
It's one of the lowest electoral margins we've had. I think it's 46th out of 50-something. It's one of the lowest in the last few cycles we've had. He won. He's the president-elect. He will be the next president of the United States. But I'm saying, if you want to be straight about it and transparent, it wasn't overwhelming. And
no, if you look at hold on, Chris, there is nobody on your network and the rest of the media that gave him a chance going into Election Day. None.
How is that relevant?
The headlines Newsweek had.
How does that make his win overwhelming?
Because to say that he was going to get crushed, Hillary Clinton was planning fireworks on the Hudson, everything was going to happen. He wins with 306 electoral votes, 9 of 13 battleground states, 2,300 counties, and you're saying you doubt whether that's overwhelming?
Yeah, because it's about 100,000. It's about 100,000 votes. It's one of the smallest electoral margins we've had, and he lost the popular vote by millions. But he won. I'm not disputing that, and I know you like that as a distraction. I'm not giving it to you today. What I'm saying
it's
is...
It's not a distraction,
of course
it's
it
a
is.
fact.
Of course it is, because you're assuming there's a premise involved that is absent from this discussion. There is no suggestion of delegitimizing the victory. What I'm saying is transparency, which you were touting yesterday, is woefully lacking where it matters most. We do not know what the business dealings are for the kids or for Trump, and you were supposed to tell us today, and you delayed it.
First of all, we have been unbelievably transparent. We literally brought the press into meetings. We've listed the kids and Jared on websites. We've been very clear since day one who's on the transition, who's on the landing team.
You're letting us know what you want us to know, and we appreciate it. What about what you're hiding?
No, but
that's what news is. What you don't want us to see.
No, because it's all about what you want. We've been unbelievably transparent. The American people are unbelievably supportive. So I get what you and some of the media want. But at the end of the day, everything that is happening. You can see every single person go up and down Trump Tower. There's a camera, for goodness sake, that shows who's coming up and who's going down.
Are any of those people in business with Donald Trump right now?
But hold on. So
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if you know the answer to it, but that's the question.
Hold on. Okay. Mr. Trump has some of the most iconic properties throughout the world. He has put his entire focus on building a cabinet, which you've seen, which you would note he's almost entirely finished with. He's by far ahead of where every modern American president has been.
Very active.
Not just by naming people, but not just active, but these are world-class people. Every single one of them, you name them, boom, 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 from the EPA to the Department of State to the Department of Interior. These are the best and brightest. He put his focus there and said, I will have a press conference, but he realized while talking to lawyers and accountants that it was going to take a little bit more time because he put his focus on the American people and having a government upright. But he will get it done. It will happen in January. We'll all be good. I promise you on that.
Well, look, I appreciate your promise, Sean. I always take you at your word. But what I'm saying is the conflicts are real. The only way you know what happens, there are two main ways. One is you know what you have going into it, which we do not. The federal disclosure is what he wants to put out. It is not an exacting of his business dealings, and you know that because it's not put through any filter except his own. The second way is to wait for something terrible to happen, and the concern politically is you're setting yourself up for that. You're creating an agenda for those who oppose him in government, and for journalists to have to dig because you're not giving them the answers. And are you worried that this will become a distraction to motivating your own agenda?
No, I'm not. And frankly, as I said, in January he will lay out in detail how he is going to separate himself from his company and who's going to run it and how he can make sure that his entire focus is on making the country better again, making sure that he's fighting every day for the American people. But he will lay that all out. He will take questions and it'll all be answered. But it takes a lot more than a few weeks because he chose to put his focus on building a cabinet, on filling key positions, and making sure that his agenda was ready to go on day one.
Sean Spicer, always appreciate the robust dialogue. Good luck to you going forward.
Thank you, Chris.